and welcome once again to the Brett Chat Sport or BCS Podcast. This week I have my first return guest, the BBC Sport journalist and San Diego Padres fan, Alex Hoad. We recorded this chat right after the Padres had just won the wildcard series against the Braves and before they start the National League Division Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, which by the time you're watching this, you may actually know the result of. So without further ado, let's hear from Alex Hoad. Hey Alex, welcome back. How are you doing, my man?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. I'm actually a little bit tired, I have to say. You've caught me at probably the craziest week I've had for quite a long time, because you've got the Padres playing at 1:30 every morning the last couple of days in the National League Wildcard Series, which I couldn't miss for the world. Obviously, I know that some people are able to kind of get through to the morning, not look at their phone, find out scores that way. I couldn't do it. I had to be part of it. It feels different when you put the hard yards in and stay up all night. So yeah, I've been working late in the evening and then pushing through for a couple of hours and then watching the Padres game and then trying to sneak an hour or two of sleep at kind of 4 o'clock in the morning the last couple of days. So yeah, I apologise for my appearance. And yeah, I'm in a good mood today because the Padres are through anyway.
Yes, yeah. When we're recording this, the Padres have just swept the Braves in the wildcard series the night before. So yeah, I'm you know, like I watched the highlights of that game, and you know, it's the Padres beating what is a very talented Braves team that was expected to do well this season. So I don't blame you for being in a good mood at all, given the given how that series could have gone either way, the quality of both teams.
Yeah, I mean, the Braves are a very good team. We were fortunate in a way that they're missing 2-3 of probably their better players, a couple of the best pitchers, and Acuna as well being out. They've had horrendous injury problems, and despite that, they were still very good, very gutsy, very gritty. The second game in particular, I had massive nerves about them coming all the way back from 5-1 down to tie it up at the end, but it didn't happen as it goes, and we managed to get through, save one night off, and then onto the Dodgers this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when we're recording this, the National League Division Series against the Dodgers is coming up. By the time you watch this, it's going to be underway. It might even have been completed. But yeah, how do you anticipate the NLDS will go, Alex? I certainly know how you want it to go.
Yeah, it doesn't tend to go how I want it to go all the time. It did, to be fair, in 2022, for the first time ever, we call it the Dragon. So Peter Seidler, our much missed owner of the Padres, who passed away last year, he's the guy that's basically bankrolled a lot of the team for the last few years and brought in the star names and assembled this squad, which looks we're in win now mode very much. So yeah, he called the Dodgers the Dragon up the freeway, which is a pretty good description because they basically beasted us for 50 years for the most part in terms of winning the division. Whenever anything goes well, you run into the Dodgers. I mean, the first 4 times I went over to San Diego, 16, 17 years ago now, on 4 different trips, they were always coincided with Dodgers games. Dodgers always win. They always packed out Petco back in the day, and it wasn't particularly enjoyable atmosphere when the crowd's probably 50-50, maybe a little bit more Dodgers fans, and they're always winning as well. So we've got that little brother syndrome a little bit with the Dodgers, but I must say we are on paper very good, and on the grass we've been very good as well after the last couple of months. So hoping beyond hope that we can put it together, hoping as well that Joe Musgrove, his arm is okay to return at some point in the postseason, because he obviously went off early in the Braves' second game. We will see. There is a unicorn called Shohei Ohtani who's going to be involved in these baseball games, and any game that he's in, he could pretty much win on his own. So if we're going to conquer the Dodgers and slay that dragon, he's the fire you need to kind of squash out pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to hold my hands up and say that I have seen nowhere near as much Padres baseball this season as you have had. So, what for you do the Padres need to do in order to win this divisional series?
Well, we've beaten the Dodgers over the course of this series. We started off in Seoul back in, I can't even remember what month it was. It must have been in March, I think, right at the start of the season. We split the series there 1-1. And then we've actually won the rest of the season series. We've had more wins against the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium than the Dodgers this year, which is something that we've not done before. But at the end of the day, they still won the division in the last couple of games of the season. We went into the final series there with a chance of sneaking the division. We won the first game to really go. We were 2 games back, 2 to play at the Dodgers. Unfortunately, then the Dodgers woke up and thought, we're not going to allow this to happen in our house, and they won the division again for the umpteenth time in a row. So yeah, it's one of those. There's a kind of, I don't know if inferiority should still be there. We beat them in 2022. They are incredibly good, but we're also incredibly good. A lot of people would say, in terms of if you take Ohtani away, then the rest of their squad, they've got some good players left. Of course, Betts and Freeman in particular, they've got some decent pitching. But the Padres have a lot of very good players as well. Dylan Cease, who we signed from Chicago White Sox, has been unbelievable, great no-hitter. Which we had our first ever Padres meet up in London for the MLB UK community for that game, which happened to be Dylan Cease's no-hitter, which was an extraordinary evening. Small group of us had a very nice time. But yeah, we've also got Yu Darvish and Michael King, who we picked up in the Juan Soto trade from the Yankees as well. It was absolutely lights out in the first wildcard game as well. You've got the pitching, you've got Manny Machado, who's always there or thereabouts, and Fernando Tatis Jr. He's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because he missed 2022's postseason. He hasn't played in the postseason since 2020, and he's pretty much the definition of aura these days. That's what the word the kids use. So I'm hoping that he can live up to it. He loves Dodger Stadium. He's hit some absolute moonshots there down the year. So all I can hope for is if somehow the Padres could split in LA on Saturday and Sunday to come back on Tuesday for Game 3, Wednesday Game 4 in Petco. The atmosphere has been absolutely outrageous at Petco. It is a real home advantage. It's electric, and hoping beyond hope they can somehow find a way to get through this one again, do it twice in a row against the Dodgers in the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everyone loves an underdog, so I'm sure every neutral will be rooting for the Padres. I say that, the Padres have had a lot of money invested in the team, so, it's weird to think of them as the underdog, but they probably are the underdog in this series, given the other team have got, players like Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts in their ranks.
Yeah, well, to be underdogs is, I'm used to being underdogs because my timing actually, I celebrated my 25th year just 2 weeks ago actually, since my first Padres game, random night at uni when I became a Padres fan back in September '99. Yeah, we've always pretty much been underdogs since then. I remember the years when we rolled out payrolls of 30 million, and you've got the Dodgers up the road with 200 million, and it's just. I've watched us lose 100 plus games a couple of times, just some horrendous seasons as well. So we've always had more hope than expectation. And it's just been this certainly the last 3 or 4 years when the expectations obviously matched up to the payroll and the quality of the players on the staff as well. We've had a few false storms, but I'm hoping it would be incredibly fitting if, having lost Peter late last year, that they could put it together now. We've got the PS heart, yellow heart on the shirts this season, and yeah, it'd be really great if we could do it this year. The National League, to me, I know it's famous last words. The National League seems a lot stronger than the American League this year, and I suspect it will be Padres, Dodgers, Phillies, probably one of those 3. Even if they're up against the Yankees, I suspect that the National League will probably have a little bit too much, but I'm not counting any chickens yet. Let's get through the first series first.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, one of the things that we didn't talk about last time, certainly not when we were recording anyway, is your sporting life. So I was wondering if there was any stories in particular that you have from your sporting life that you'd be willing to share with the viewers and listeners.
Well, as you know, I am a sports journalist, and I always wanted to be a sportsman. I wanted to be a footballer, to be honest. When I was a kid, I played football at primary school. I was all right. Went to secondary school, played kind of district and county level. I was a goalkeeper actually, because I started off playing rugby, and you need your hands for rugby. And there was no one that wanted to play in goal, and I'm a big lump, and they basically said you can go in goal. And it turns out I wasn't too bad. So played kind of Kent schoolboys up to under 13s, under 14s, I think, age group, and then did that thing that a lot of people do, where they just kind of think, oh, I've kind of don't want to go training. I want to go and see my mates, and there's this new thing called girls, and maybe even some like underage drinking to do, and you kind of get
Shocking,
distracted
Alex.
and you lose your way. And I kind of self-sabotaged a little bit in that couple of years, that probably the most important couple of years. And so immediately go back. If I can't play sport, I want to write about sport and talk about sport. And I've managed to luckily have a pretty good backup. I'm not quite as rich as I would be had I made it as a professional athlete, but so sport's been my life for work, but outside as well. I played plenty of sports. I've tried pretty much every sport there is, just for recreation. But there was one sport in particular which my natural bulk and my skill set from the rugby background and the goalkeeping background and being massive. Can you guess what sport that might be?
Well, I mean, you've already told me this, so it's a bit of an anticlimax for me. But having met you and having seen what a sizable human being you are, it doesn't actually come as any surprise to me that you want to try out for the NFL, and I would love it if you would be willing to tell us more about that, because it was like you told me about this off there, and it was it's an incredible story. In my mind. Please do tell us how you, Alex Hoad, managed to get a place on the NFL Combine and actually try it out for all those scouts.
Yes, indeed. It was a very strange time of life. So I played in the British League, is the first thing to say. They don't just take people off the street. Well, now they do. If you play other sports, you've got the international pathway. But no, in that day, there wasn't quite the same structure to the international pathway. So I played in the British American Football League. Started off a couple of divisions down. Got my team from Kent were promoted. The Mavericks were promoted up to the Premier League. Playing against the might of the London Warriors, that glorious team. Aidan Durdes, is the head coach at defense coordinator at Seattle now. I think he is. He's been with the Cowboys as well. He was the head coach there at the London Warriors in those days. Effie Abada, that was the year that he was at the Warriors as well, and Vernon Kay was knocking around, and it was kind of a star-studded lineup for that Warriors team. Unfortunately, they absolutely walloped everybody, including us. I played as a tight end, so my bulk gives me an ability to block, but also I'm deceptively fast for a big guy, and a good hands from the goalkeeping and the rugby. So all things combined, perfect tight end. I wore number 87 before Gronk ever wore 87 as well, I should point out, or Travis Kelce. So they've just copied me. But yeah, I wasn't too bad. I came to it quite late, so I had miles on the clock already, and plenty of knee injuries from football and things like that as well. But no, I was okay, pretty good, and caught a few passes and did some spectacular things. And there were some American coaches that saw a game that we played and came over to do a coaching session and suggested that it might be worth throwing your hat in the ring, because there's this new thing. Basically, they had an international combine, a series of them, which were held kind of in regions across the states. And so this is 10, 11 years ago now. There was one of them basically contacted them, sent us some stats, sent us some tape from Huddle. And they were like, "Oh, would you like to come to the it's the regional combine in New York at the New York Jets facility at Florham Park in New Jersey?" It was the week of Valentine's Day. I know this because I got in a lot of trouble. But I flew out on my own. There was about 10 feet of snow on the ground. It was unbelievable. Very strange experience. Stayed in Manhattan and went out. It was a lot further out than I thought it would be. But I spent 6 months training before that. I knew where I was going to be going. 6 months training, just proper Rocky style, eating clean, training dirty, doing all kinds of random stuff. This kind of picture of the Jets facility on my wall, focusing my mind, and got myself in about as good a shape as I've ever been. And because I knew that you had to have all the stuff you have at the combine. You have your photo taken with your shirt off, and you have all your stats measured, and you have to do all the combine drills as well. So your 40-yard dash. I was quite lucky through work, so I knew a few athletes from having worked with them locally. So I got some decent sprinting help from a GB sprinter, and there were a few other people as well that kind of shared some tips with me. I wrote some features about it along the way, actually, just to kind of scratch that itch as well, make it an entertaining thing as well, because I like to do that. And so I went over there, and there was me. I was in a tight end group with a guy that was the South African under-23 discus champion. There was a guy that played rugby league for the All Blacks under-20s team, and we had an amazing time. It was just one day thing, a long day, a hard day as well. The warm-up was the hardest thing I've ever done, and that's harder than playing in any game. The warm-ups that the NFL coaches were just absolutely brutal. But got through it. There were a lot of coaches there. There were two vivid things that I remember. Tom Coughlin, who was the coach of the New York Giants at the time, he was the one head coach that everyone had spotted, and there was kind of this balcony that runs along the side of the indoor field. They didn't have any heating in there, so it was minus, in our money, in Celsius, it was minus 2 or 3 degrees. It was freezing. But yeah, so everyone kind of had their eye on him, and he just happened to be stood right there when I was running my routes, and it was quite a cool little thing. I don't think I'd necessarily impressed him because he never called. But there was also cameras everywhere you look from like the local media, but also the NFL Network had cameras there. And I'll call it a moment of fame. So there were obviously QBs there at the draft as well, and they were all getting worked out too. Most of them were kind of college guys that got injured in college and needed to basically show themselves, didn't have enough footage, so they needed to show themselves off to some scouts and put some numbers down. And so we were given routes to run, and I don't know why. It's just by sheer coincidence. I didn't notice until the next day, but basically they videoed me running a wheel route, so kind of coming back behind the line of scrimmage and then booming it up the outside. And this guy, he massively overthrew it. To my dying day, he overthrew this pass. It was at least 5 yards too far where it should have been. I'm not slow, but yeah, basically I laid out, went full stretch trying to catch it, got 2 hands on the ball. And everyone that was watching, they were kind of oohs and ahs because they thought I was going to bring off an unbelievable catch. And then, unfortunately, it spooned out as I went to the ground. It was all captured on camera. And then the next morning, it was on NFL Network as they were kind of doing their bit about the combines. And it just happened to be one of the highlights that they chose. So I have a little snippet on my phone, a very dusty old phone from over a decade ago now of me kind of embarrassing myself on well, I suppose international TV, but it was only American TV at the time. But it was kind of cool. I'm still draft eligible, I believe, but I don't think it's going to happen now. I've given up. There were a couple of years when I kept my phone on, and they did also circulate the stats to the Canadian League because they were often looking for international players as well. So there was one, I got an invite to a trial from I think it's the Blue Bombers in the Canadian League. They were having their own individual trial day, but it would have involved me paying to go over there, and I'm just like, I can't commit to that kind of expense. But basically, I was already too old and beaten up anyway, so I doubt it would have ever happened. So yeah, a fun experience. It never happened. So only stuff I do now is recreational. Play a bit of paddle now, actually, which is all the rage in the south of England, which is that funny kind of continental half squash, half tennis sport. Brilliant fun. Not going to make it as a pro, but you just play for fun when you get to a certain age, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. And there are two questions that I have off the back of you participating in the NFL Combine. Do you remember your 40-yard dash time?
Yeah, I do, because it was so cold. So basically, I got so my time was 4:99, which was good psychologically because it was under 5 seconds, but it was so cold in that room that all the DBs went in the morning and they were all turned up and they were saying, oh, I run 4:34, I run 4:4 and everything. And they were running, they reckon about a quarter of a second slower. So I was hoping to get down to about 4:75. That was my aim, which kind of fits in because my execution was very good, but it was just cold. The warm up was really hard. And then you get very cold very quickly. And so I probably wasn't in prime shape. When I was here doing it on a running track, getting hand timed, admittedly, I was getting down kind of well under 5 seconds, which was good because that's where the money comes from. It's all about those stats are the things. They have a database so they can filter all that kind of stuff. So if you want someone that is at least 6'3" tall, you want hand size, which is 10.25 inches. And you want someone that runs under 4'8", and you're going through all this kind of stuff. You want someone that weighs more than 255. And then it's like old school database on Football Manager. You come up with your star name and it's kind of, that could be me. That could have been me. But yeah, the times from that combine weren't great. There was another combine the following week in, I think, maybe Tampa, and the times were a lot better. It was the year that Greg Zerline went to one of these as well and got signed and went on to be a very successful kicker. Greg the Leg in the
workplace for the Jets
in the NFL.
now.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's Yeah, it was an experience. The time wasn't as good as I'd hoped, but that was one I really focused on, more so than the kind of the cone drills and the what was my standing. I'd say the standing jump as well. Standing broad jump was 8. It was under 9, and it was annoying because I was hoping to get to 9. And the vertical, I can't remember. The vertical was 29, and I wanted to get to kind of plus 30, I think. Yeah, but it was fun. It was something to do, and I wrote about it for fun as well. I got quite a few interviews as well out of that at the time. 5 minutes of fame, but unfortunately, no actual fame and sporting glory came out of that.
Yeah, and I believe that part of the NFL Combine is that you also get interviewed by coaches and scouts, and that those coaches and scouts can ask some very outlandish questions at times. Do you remember what was the most outlandish question you got during your interviews?
Well, so we didn't get the full experience. We didn't have to do the Wonderlic test and all the kind of the aptitude test and things like that, because we were kind of like long shots outside the kind of the normal loop type people. We were kind of like, I don't know, the cast off kids from different parts of the world and different colleges and injured people, basically. So it's an opportunity for people that might have ordinarily not been noticed to kind of showcase their skills. So we didn't have the coaches interviewing us. We spent time with the NFL appointed coaches on the day, and they did do individual assessments, because I remember because I was a lot older. I was 7, 8, 9 years older than the other guys in my position, tight end, that were trying out on that day. And I just kind of, they said that I was just basically nice to them and just kind of showed leadership and that kind of stuff, which was nice, because I tried to be nice anyway, if it's all possible. But so no, luckily I didn't have to embarrass myself in front of any actual famous coaches or coordinators or learn any playbooks and try and recall them, because that was always hard work, just trying to figure it out. Just don't want to run or block. That would be quite simple, rather than all these numbers and names, hand signals. It all got very confusing.
Yeah, certainly. But it was a wonderful experience by all accounts, and it's, as you say, it's something that you were able to then leverage into your work as a journalist. So let's talk about your work as a journalist more. Like one of the things that you said to me before we had this chat is that you are now a full-time employee of BBC Sport. So that's wonderful news, and congratulations to you. Something that I noticed over the summer is that your tweets and your coverage of the Olympics really stood out to me. That must be a very proud moment for you to be covering the Paris Olympics.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. So the Olympics is something. I went to the Olympics in London. I was very lucky. So the British Olympic Association chose a load of regional journalists, 10 regional journalists from around the country, to get accreditation, because obviously with an Olympics, people come from all over the world, hundreds, thousands of journalists, written and TV and radio as well. So there was very limited space. There were 10 journalists that were chosen for regional passes, and I got one. And so I covered the Southeast back in 2012. We're covering Kent and Sussex and Essex and a bit of London. And I had an amazing time. It was a life-changing time, just the best thing. I'd obviously watched the Olympics, and you kind of get caught up in it, but being in it when it actually happened was a fantastic experience. It was incredibly wholesome, uplifting time. It was my favourite time, I think, probably in life, that summer of 2012, because Britain just felt great. We were proud. The opening ceremony kind of set everyone off, and there'd been a lot of negativity before the Olympics, but during it was just the best few weeks, and the weather was good, and it was really glorious, and it kind of gave me a bug. So I tried to kind of really throw myself into my career after that. Managed to get I got accreditation for Commonwealth Games up in Glasgow a couple of years later as well. I really caught the bug, and then carried on by going to kind of major competitions, European Championships Athletics, World Championships Athletics back in London as well. And so when I started working at the BBC a few years ago in kind of a freelance capacity, doing bits and bobs, mainly radio bits and bobs, before I started in online a couple of years back. So I started off doing athletics for BBC Radio Scotland, randomly enough, and updating them on things like it must have been 2022 World Championships in Oregon, And it all spiraled. It all got pretty crazy because people were just kind of saying, you sound like you know what you're talking about. And so another radio station would be like, oh, actually, can you talk to us about it as well? And then the BBC have something called the Central News Service. So they basically put a journalist up to go and talk to any of their kind of 39, I think it is, local BBC radio stations as well. So you might get a schedule saying, right, you're doing this one at 9:05, you're doing this one at 9:15, you're doing this one at 9:25. And it's pretty hardcore. You're talking about relatively similar stuff each time, but it's a lot of fun. And Scotland turned into doing bits and bobs for the whole country. And the Olympics this year, I did the Winter Olympics a couple of years back in, I can't even remember where it was now. Where was that? Pyeongchang, I think, so perhaps something like that. And the Winter Paralympics as well. And then, so Paris arrived, and I wasn't sure. I was desperate to cover Paris because I've covered 4 games in a row for one person or another. And I was desperately hoping I'd get a chance to do this one. And I did get a call fairly close by saying, could I do it for BBC Local Radio, regional stations kind of across the south and southeast, Kent, Sussex, Solent, Berkshire, Oxfordshire, Surrey. Yes, plenty of them. I'm sorry if I've forgotten any, but yeah. So that was a whole lot of athletes to concern myself with from Team GB. I think I had about 40 in total to kind of keep an eye on, and I was doing very long hours. That was the hardest I've ever worked at anything. I did every day of the game, so kind of 20 straight days, with a day kind of before and at the end of it as well. And it was 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. every day, I'd say, and 8 or 9 radio hits during the day. A lot of the rest of it is kind of watching the different sports, multiple screens. I had 4 screens on at one point, trying to keep on top of things that are happening at the same time. It was, but you think Scott Hansen has a hard job on Red Zone. It was basically, that was it. It was me trying to cobble everything together, the wall climbing at the same time, and some rowing here and some cycling here. And it was incredible. Brilliant experience. Got some nice feedback. And as you say, the tweets I sent out, I absolutely love what I do. I've done plenty of stuff in my life and my career that I didn't particularly enjoy. So I'm going to absolutely make the most of all the good, fun, cool opportunities that I'm proud to get. And the Olympics, there's nothing like it. I've gone into a job now which is pretty much entirely football and is online, which I love as well. It was my first love, and it might be the thing that I'm best at. But yeah, I've already got that itch in the back of my mind thinking, oh, LA 2028, it's 3.5 years away, or whatever it's going to be. How am I going to get to do that if I'm doing football? So I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But it would tie in quite nicely if I go and watch the Padres play down the road and then go to the Olympics in LA. I'll try and make the magic happen.
Yeah, and one of the things that stuck out for me about your tweeting during the Olympics was just how enthusiastic you were, and just the pride that you had and the pride that you were conveying in the athletes' achievements. It really came through my computer screen and my phone screen at me, and it was a joy to see. But one of the things that gets brought up every so often when it comes to the BBC is the subject of impartiality. How impartial do you have to be as a BBC sport journalist? Where is the line between enthusiasm of an athlete's achievement and what the BBC would consider as going too far?
Yeah, well, the answer is impartiality is very important. When you get a staff job, you get your impartiality training pretty much on day one. But you have to schedule it on day one anyway, and it is seen as hugely important because it's not just any old company. It's obviously funded by the license fee, and you have a charter, which basically means that you're committed to serving the audience and giving them fair and accurate coverage. It's slightly different depending on if you're a war correspondent, if you're a news journalist, if you're a sports journalist, you all kind of have slightly different standards that you're held to. In terms of the enthusiasm of the tweets about the Olympics, no one's really going to worry too much about that. In an Olympic summer, Team GB athletes, and no one's going to be accusing you of being impartial if I celebrate the fact that Keely Hodgkinson has beaten Mary Mora from Kenya to claim a medal. We're not going to worry too much about the kind of the Kenyans getting annoyed at us for kind of favorite for Keeley being our favorite.
Yeah, Keely Hodgkinson's from my part of the world as well. So I absolutely remember the.
Well, you
the
should be
event
very
that you
proud
were
of her. You
referring
should
to.
be very enthusiastic.
Yeah,
Absolute
indeed.
star, yeah. And she actually, my little girl's quite inspired by Keely Hodgkinson as well. So she's just turned 9 and she's going to athletics club now. Partly because of she sees, if you can see it, you can be it, as they always say, and she can see a kind of a young blonde girl running around the track and being very fast and beating people and looking great and glamorous doing it too. And so yes, that's what she wants to be at the moment. So I'm quite happy with that wholesomeness. But yeah, so the impartiality, obviously there was a lot of stuff with Gary Lineker, and that actually has led to a bit of a change in terms of how the BBC do things. I won't go into the nitty gritty of it too much, but I obviously wouldn't be in this position were I not professional. And there have been plenty of times in my career when I've had challenges. I'm thinking back specifically to the last couple of years when I've had to cover an Arsenal game or two, and I was completely professional, despite the fact that I may or may not be a very long-term season ticket holder at Tottenham. You have to be professional. So I complimented Saka on his fine strike and wonderful goal. And I commented on the Arsenal fans were having a delightful evening. It's fine. Your professionalism takes over, and it's one of those things. When you're young, you're interested in sport, and you kind of always hear, "Oh, he supports my team." And Roy Keane famously, apparently, used to support Tottenham. It never seemed like it when he played against Tottenham. He always wanted to absolutely batter us, and you kind of think, "Oh, maybe, surely it has some kind of an impact." And to be honest, you really can. There is a little switch you can flip and just play it straight down the line. No bias one way or another. Obviously, in your own group chats or whatever, you're kind of away from the public eye. You can share your own views, but when you're public facing, particularly on the BBC Sport website, which is very high profile in the grand scheme of things, you have to be incredibly careful. Play it straight down the line. Because the people that your audience, they're supporting different teams. They're not just going to be the supporters of the two teams, of the winning team, of the team that's losing. They're going to be other fans as well. So you can't be seen to have, I don't know, a Fleetwood Town fan that pays their license fee thinking we're taking the mickey out of Fleetwood, or we don't respect Fleetwood at all. Or everyone deserves their team to be given respect. And so hopefully I've done that all right so far, and I intend to continue doing it if it's all possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I say this is a license fee payer. I see that, and obviously I'm not completely objective because we know each other, and I consider you at the very least a good acquaintance. But it was an absolute joy to see the enthusiasm that you had for those athletes and their achievements, whether it was Keely Hodgkinson or whether it was someone like Toby Roberts. You in many ways were reflecting the pride that we as a British viewing public had in that young man for the fact that he just won an Olympics when he's only 19 years old in an event that was only in its second Olympics as well. So for me it's again, I say this as someone who is not entirely objective, but I read your tweets and it added to the experience that your enthusiasm for those wins and those achievements was coming through. And there may be some people that disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. We are, as a viewing public, allowed to have different opinions, but as you say, as long as you are being professional and you are basing everything that you say in facts, that is the important thing. Just in the same way as Gary Lineker can be a Leicester City fan, and he doesn't pretend that, but he also acknowledges when teams do well against Leicester, and that's that. And yes, obviously with Gary Lineker there are wider issues in that he's expressed opinions on non-sporting issues that affect all of us, and and people can have their opinions on that one way or another. But as you say, the important thing is that professionalism is retained, and that ultimately we as a viewing and listening public are informed, educated and entertained by what you are doing as journalists.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely. I mean, thank you very much for the compliment. I'll certainly keep trying to do it, and I might add that to my LinkedIn as well, if that's all right. But yeah, educate, inform, and entertain. Those are the three words. That was on my application day one that I applied for the BBC, and it took me years to get into the BBC. I had my first interview when I was 19, I think. It didn't work out then, but got in eventually. But yeah, edinfotainment was what Lord Reith called it, and so that's all I try and do: educate, inform, and entertain. And that's particularly why I enjoy the live text and writing about the football, because you can have a little bit of fun with it as well. Like, not at people's expense, but you can. There's always the opportunity for a little bit of wordplay or a little bit of stuff that's not just this strict reportage, which a lot of people kind of have to do. You want to tell people what's going on, sure, but you want to provide a bit of kind of colour around it as well, and that's the joy of it, really. So,
do you have guidelines as to how much colour you are allowed to add? Then, like, is that part of your training? That you're told you can go this far in terms of humour or whatever it may be that adds that little bit of extra to what you're doing.
Well, you'll always have a safety net. Put it that way. So there's always somebody. So I'm strictly a writer. I don't kind of organise the lives or do anything. I publish comments myself, but there is always someone moderating what I say. So if they think I've gone across the line that I don't recall it happening so far, then they would absolutely be there as a safety net to kind of immediately take it down and then tell me off. There are guidelines. It's kind of a thing. It doesn't come naturally, but it's something that when you've read it for so many years, you kind of know the style of the way things are done anyway. I was a reader long before I ever worked there, and so you kind of know the rough idea, and then you kind of put your own stamp on it. I mean, my colleagues and probably the readers as well, if they knew who I was, would probably notice the fact that I probably try and do a little bit more humour than some people do. I might be a little bit overly descriptive. I don't know. I had one. I did Derby Norwich last week, which was an absolutely crazy game because the ball went out a foot out of the field and was hooked back into play, and a goal was scored, and it was allowed to stand because there's no VAR in the Championship. And so the chap that scored it was called Saints. It was for your Saints, and there was so many different arguments about it rumbling on throughout the whole game. He scored a hat-trick. They won 3-2, and I put you could write an epic novel about the amount of stuff that's happened in the last 90 minutes. Perhaps you could call it Sense and Sensibility and that kind of stuff. So some people would absolutely love that. Dad jokes, silly puns, some people will love it. Some people absolutely hate it. You can always tell from the thumbs up and the thumbs down as well. But it doesn't really matter. As long as it's made you think or feel something, I don't really mind. I enjoyed it, and I thought, right, I'm just going to go for it. And then if my colleague had said, no way, get rid, that's not happening, then fine, I'd have taken it on the chin as well, and I wouldn't have had my feelings hurt. But yeah. A little bit of fun is the world isn't fun enough, so if I can try and add a little bit of fun to it somewhere. It probably wasn't fun for Derby on the end of it, but we do our best to provide that entertainment as well as the information.
Well, I mean, something that I would say is, and this is me speaking personally here, as you said, the first time you interviewed with the BBC was when you were 19 years old. I don't think I'm revealing too much here if I say that you're now in your 40s. So, the fact that after 20 plus years, you've now achieved your goal and you're working for BBC Sport, I say once again, absolutely congratulations to you. I'm very personally happy for you that you've managed to achieve something that you've wanted to for 20 years, so as I say, congratulations to you on that, Alex.
Thank you very much. That's nice. I'll swap it all for a Padres World Series, though, to be completely honest.
Yeah. And just to go back to your pre-BBC Sport career, then, do you have any, are there any stories that stick out for you in terms of good interviews that you've had? Any really, like, standout games that you've covered? Anyone that you've spoken to where it really sticks out in your mind as something that you'll never forget or was a highlight of your career?
It's going to be. This all sounds like such grandstanding. It's a bit icky. I feel a bit because I've done some very cool things, and I'm very lucky, and I know that I'm very lucky, and it doesn't happen to a lot of people. So I've had a couple of moments, just extraordinary moments. So that London 2012 experience, the accreditation I had was basically, it was like a gold ticket. So Willy Wonka, go wherever you like, do whatever you like. I went to the opening ceremony, the closing ceremony. I went to the basketball gold medal match, which was very cool. So my basketball NBA team are the Knicks, and that was just a weird holiday romance thing. Went on holiday, just went as a tourist, and then realised actually this is really good fun, and then went back again later in the week, and then got into the whole. I don't have enough sleep. Oh no, I have too much sleep. I need less sleep. I'm going to start watching American sport in the night. So I'm going to try and complete the set and get all the major league teams.
Now you see,
never
Alex,
touching
we've
hockey.
known each
Never
other
touching hockey.
Now you see, Alex, we've known each other for a long time now, and if there is one thing that is true of me, it's that basketball is my first love, and this is the first time hearing of you also being a basketball fan.
But I also, because you're a Bulls fan, and I have been to the United Centre or whatever it's called to watch the Knicks against the Bulls. That was an experience because I made the mistake of wearing my Knicks shirt, and they didn't like that very much. That was not a great time. But yeah, to be honest, but as you know, when you're a Brit that has kind of American sporting allegiances, it's kind of secular throughout the year because you can't give everything to everyone at the same time. So for the Padres, I love the Padres. They are my real American sport love more than anything else. They have been for 25 years and a month now, or 2 weeks. But it takes a while. It's a slow burner. The first half of the season, it takes me a while to get into because I've also got work and life. It's been the back end of the football season here, so Tottenham will be doing something to annoy me as well. You have the NFL burns very brightly while it's here. I don't. My NFL team, I think I mentioned last time, I no longer have an NFL team due to to Dean Spanos taking the Chargers away to LA, which just seems even more insane in a week like this when you've seen the crowds in San Diego. What an unbelievable sports town it is.
Yeah,
that he's decided to take them there when they're the fourth most popular team in the and it's just absolutely embarrassing. But anyway.
Yeah, and you'll get a lot of sympathy from me because I know about this firsthand, given the fact that the Oakland A's have literally just left Oakland and will now be playing in Sacramento from next season. So I absolutely understand.
It's the same thing. Like I will be going if the Padres are still going. By the time this video comes out, I will be in San Diego next week to go and have some more experiences because I'm just about able to afford to do it and because I want to. And these are like life moments that don't come along very often. 2022, I will never forget in my life. It was some of the best times I've ever had, though, celebrating beating the Dodgers. And I want more moments like that. Ideally, it would be nice to do it against the Phillies, to be completely honest. And then after that, we'll cross the Yankees bridge or whoever it might be, probably the Yankees. But yeah, so it's something that American sport, it's the least favourite thing for me. I've got a bit of experience from the Chargers. My Chargers love was kind of born out of the love of San Diego and the Padres, really. So it was always a kind of secondary thing. And I love the sport, played the sport. I actually appreciate the sport now even more than I ever did before. I'm actually going to the game after this has come out. So I'm going on Sunday to the Vikings Jets game, which should be interesting as well. It's at Tottenham, which is another cool experience to have, which I'm paying for. That isn't a work freebie, I should point out as well, before anyone worries about BBC license fees going anywhere.
For now, though, I think we've had a wonderful time chatting, Alex. But I'm very aware that you have got children to pick up from school, and if you can potentially get a nap in after staying up all night watching the Padres win last night, then all the best.
I didn't need game 3. There's no game 3, so I do actually get some sleep tonight, which is very good. I'm very grateful to Joe Musgrove and all the guys for that. And yeah, indeed, let's go Padres.
Yeah, well, as I say, when this episode goes out, the divisional series may have already been decided, but I wish you all the best, and I hope you certainly enjoy watching the divisional series. I will put it that way.
That was very impartial of you. Well done, Brett. That's excellent.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time, Alex. It's been an absolute joy as always to chat to you, and I'll talk to you again.
Thanks for having me.
So there you have it, a wonderful chat with Alex there, I thought, and I really enjoyed getting to talk to him again. what's more, I really appreciated that Alex was willing to open up and let us know the rules and the guidelines that he is governed by in terms of impartiality as a BBC journalist. Impartiality at the BBC is something that has been in the news on a number of occasions in recent years, and as Alex highlighted, it's often been Gary Lineker that has been at the centre of those rows, shall we say. And this is my opinion alone. I think at times there's very much been a hidden agenda around some of the accusations of bias and non-impartiality that have been levelled against Gary Lineker, but that certainly should not impugn the reputation of the BBC as a whole, or journalists like Alex. As Alex mentioned there, he is governed by a very clear set of guidelines, and not only that, he has someone performing a check and balance on everything he does in terms of the text commentary that he is doing during games. That is how important impartiality is at the BBC. For now though, that is the end of another episode of the BCS podcast. As always, I very much appreciate you tuning in, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye now. The BCS podcast is written, produced, edited and hosted by me, Brett Walker. Thank you to Boris Anderoff and Pixabay for the use of the music and sound effects in this podcast. This week's guest was Alex Hoad.